Okay, Lynn, thanks for making it. And Kat, and the rest of you, thanks for being here today. So we'll call the meeting to order, and we'd like to approve the agenda. So if does anyone have any issues with the agenda? Kat? Have you seen the, okay, no issues? Okay, not hearing from anyone with an objection to the agenda. I will ask for your approval of the agenda and raise your hand to indicate so. Lynn, I'm not sure there you go. Okay, so the committee members, and then I guess I have a question here. We have other participants when we're asking this of the audience, or am I just asking that of the committee?
Isn't it just the
I think just the
committee?
committee. Yeah.
Just a
Okay, I
committee,
believe
yeah.
it is. So that's, I mean, that's what I did, but I questioned it as I
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we have approved the agenda. And do we have any amendments to the December 11th meeting minutes? Does anyone have any offering of adjustments or corrections or edits to the December 11th meeting minutes? No, says Kat.
Yeah,
Lynn?
I think I wasn't there. So,
I believe you were not.
I,
Right. Well, I'm sure an editor could probably find an issue with something in my minutes, but if we do not have, I have no indication that we have any corrections or edits, so I'd move the minutes from December 11th be approved. So any conflict of interest declarations from the committee? Lynn? Have any? No. Kat? No. And I do not have any conflicts on today's agenda, conflict of interest. So, Tom, showtime.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you for joining us, and really appreciate your work in helping us understand the processes that you've developed with the bylaws committee and sharing those with us.
Well, it's a group process. I came up with some of the slides and some of the concepts, but we've hammered them out. Let's see if I can share. Apparently I can. Okay. So by way of background, this was my recollection of how we decided to do things and how we are proceeding. I'll take your guidance as to what you want to hear. Now, this is my guess as to what you want to hear, which is basically what are the purposes of the documentation connected to the process we use, and I get answer questions and get feedback. I do have an overview of what we currently do in terms of document processing, what our stages are, if that's of interest. So tell me what you want to do, what you want me to do.
Please provide the process and the stages would be very helpful, I think.
Okay, I think I'll slightly modify. I sent you a link. I assume you sent that link to your members if you wanted to follow along. If not, I've got it right here. And
yeah, I think it's better on the screen because I'm not sure what it has
Yeah.
at hand.
No worries. So this document maintenance is really part of the background of what I talk about in the subsequent slides. The document storage process structure is, and it's going to come up on a different screen, of course. Put that over here. Basically, this is a document. We're in revision 6 right now, and I'll explain what that means. But basically, we've set up we actually, first of all, Jeff set up a library for us, and I suspect you will want to have that same sort of thing. We've got several categories of things that we want to keep. And we have this document, which is in Administrivia, which talks about processes and how things work. We have our meeting agendas and minutes all go into the meetings directory. The directory for article changes is more complex. We have divided our document. Well, actually, Robert's Rules of Order has divided our document into these particular categories, and we take them each one at a time. We have a current draft bylaws draft. Sorry about that. And we will be incrementing that as we go through each one of these. Once we approve some subsection, which we have yet to do, we will go ahead and integrate that into the current draft. Now, these are only drafts. They are not binding on the community until the community decides that that's what the entire package is what we want. And we're not going to do incremental improvement or approval by the NCAC. We're going to produce a package, but there are certainly people can look at what we're currently doing, and if they're having issues with it, they can contact us and give us feedback and hopefully directions. We have a directory for for internal bylaws reviews. These are all open to everybody on the internet. We have a directory which has the other CAC bylaws, which I admit I have not read. I really should do that. And then we have a thing for member comments. Actually, that may be, is that changed? Yes, no, that's what it is now. It was feedback originally, I think, which may still be there. And as we get things in, we have a comment form. Hopefully that's to the right one. I suspect it's not because I updated that. It's not, that link is not working. Anyway, we have a comment form. We have unprocessed comments, of which we have one at present. And once we get those comments processed, we'll move them into the processed comments. So what the whole idea is, we want to be very transparent about what we're doing and have a record of what we have done. So we can look at it and say, okay, this is a new, say, look at the final draft of the bylaws and say, okay, well, this seems kind of strange. Where did this come from? You could actually trace it back. We also have, I amended this just as get a common understanding of what our communication rules are. And Sarah, I think you have seen this or the like. But basically, it's just a reminder to us of how we're meant to work. I don't know that you want to go in. It's probably the way you're working already. But let me make that
No, we
bit.
have, I would say that we've been staggering along, trying to understand what a acceptable protocol will be. And so all of these pieces and rules are very helpful in helping us understand what we can and may not do in order to stay legit as we go through and do our editing. So this is all very helpful.
Okay, well, Sarah, please correct me if I misstate anything, but essentially, just going through it, everything that we do is going to be stored on the Google Drive. We're not permitted to have conversations with more than one-on-one, ever. That includes emails. So sending an email out to everybody is not an approved behavior. I think the exception is by the chair can send out things like agendas and notices of updates of the website, but no interchange, no back and forth is permitted. Sarah, is that a reasonable statement?
Yes, it is, Tom. Thank you. And just the things that Tom is presenting, we have talked about with the bylaws committee, and I have ran these through county council as well.
Good. I wasn't aware that you had actually done that part, so good, thank you.
Yeah.
And so information, you've got to be posted to the Google Drive. We attempted to get, Nancy attempted to champion the idea that we could have a blog where we could essentially send emails to, and everybody could see, but that didn't fly. So we're going to be dependent on the Google Drive.
Can
Tom,
I just interject there? We have not heard anything official about that blog thing yet.
okay.
So I think Sarah
not-
reported out at one of these meetings, but we have not heard a thing yet.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, Nancy. Yes, no, Tom is correct. County council did not support that as part of the project.
Okay. I was about to
And-
say it's still flight, but no, it's crashed.
So
okay, Lynn has a question as she has her hands up. Lynn, what do you have?
Yep, quick question. So these bylaws are just so I'm clear, I'm understanding this. These are the bylaws that rule the NCAC for all it does going forward, as well as this part of the process that we are taking on our committee.
Correct.
That is my understanding.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, back to you, Tom.
Okay.
I also had a question.
Sure.
So
ahead.
I just wanted to mention, Tom, I hadn't caught this before. I think we need to update the document under meetings, but we're now not just putting agendas and minutes in the meetings area on the first page of the document. We're also putting all the documents for a given meeting are going into a folder on that area of meetings in the document management system. So if you go in to say, we just had a meeting last Friday, you'll see all the documents that are addressed in that meeting, and you can go in any time and go in meeting by meeting. If you want to go back and see previous iterations, you can do that too. So, but we need to update that. It just
Yeah,
occurred to me.
I
So,
agree. We
thank
need
you.
to update that. I think actually those are pointers to documents. The documents actually reside
Correct.
in the places that I said. So
That's
that's
true.
the difference. And I do need to update the links to in this document to indicate their current ones. Actually, I probably should just indicate the directory because that will change, and I don't want to maintain this document. Okay, and that basically just talks about the fact that we'll have that. This is something which has happened. And secretary, our esteemed secretary and the chair and myself are the ones who have update privileges on that, and that's just for making sure that we keep with our stated goal of having proper histories and that something doesn't get overwritten. And I'll go into that in just a second. And this just gives contact information, and we have everything goes to Nancy, hopefully. But if Nancy doesn't show up for 24 hours on a response, then they send things to me. So that's basically our operating rules going forward.
Okay. All right, well, lots of hands on all the pieces that get created and a place to access those easily.
Mhm.
And that involves a lot of people all the time. So that helps with transparency.
Okay, so I'm thinking that this probably needs to be a separate document, and that's probably what we'll do, but Nancy and I will figure that out. Right, Nancy? Yes, I'm sure she said yes.
Yes, sounds good, Tom.
It occurs to me that the communications rules maybe should just be posted like front and center on the NCAC page.
Wouldn't argue with that.
You know,
Not my decision.
just to keep us all, anybody who logs in, then they don't have to search through a library document. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know what exactly you're saying, and that would be a great topic to bring up with the executive board when they meet.
Okay.
That's if I can interject, we are meeting later this month, the executive board, and that's a great that time. I agree.
Suggestion.
So before people even search for information on the NCAC website, they know what the communications rules are.
Right, that'd be great.
Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
Good idea.
we will note that right now, those are just for the bylaws committee. So I don't know if
Okay,
the rest of
okay,
the
I see what you're
NCAC
saying.
would want to come
Well,
up with, to
aren't they
use the
kind-
same rules we have, but
aren't they
those are
kinda
for our committee's
universal?
work.
Aren't they
They-
universal kind of with?
they're
with
meant
the-
to be, but we can only say what we are doing. And that's why I suggested that the executive committee might want to look at it and decide whether or not that's what they want to live with. And they may have additional things. So this was so far has suited our needs.
Yeah.
So whoever, the executive committee, that's their job, not ours. I don't want more jobs. Okay. The naming conventions, I kind of alluded to this earlier. Essentially, you'll notice that this particular document has a very strange looking name, and it's kind of there's the full name. And that's by way of example of trying to make sure that people can tell what a file has in it without having to look inside. So we have this convention, and we've defined it for everybody. Of course, we're not going to compel people. We can't compel people to use it, but this is a suggestion that you might want to start storing your documents in your system with beginning with ST. The first of which is this presentation that I'm giving today. Essentially, the first two letters does indicate who's the source of the document. And those are all the different sources we could think of at the time. The general subject of the document, and there are quite a number of bad indentation there. Oh, I got to fix that. That's the editor of me speaking. So these are the kinds of things that you'd expect to see for a subject. So that's an easy way of saying, and then a particular title. If obviously agenda may not need it, but the title of a document in this particular case is file naming standards. So it's a process, and it's file naming standard, and it's revision 1. This is a way that I've experienced with the IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, and they use these revision numbers so that people can have the same file name, but with a revision incremented, so you can trace the change of a document over time. And one of the things that the IEEE really insists on is traceability. And that's a very important, and especially when things become contentious. And believe it or not, engineers can be contentious. Okay, everybody who smiled now has had dealings with engineers. So, but anyway, by example, this document is another example. But starting with R0, because that's a revision number, and the original one is not a revision, so it's an R0. And that's just my hobby horse on that one. Any questions on the file naming convention?
Well, I guess we'll be trying to come up with all these different initials for different parts of our committee. So that's some work for us to do.
Okay, so you basically we said steering committee if you want to be something.
Oh, there you go, ST.
So if you wanted to be something else different, just let me know, and we'll change our recommendations to suit your needs. And if there's other subjects there that you think that would be there interesting, you could do that.
Okay.
Okay. Going on. Let's see. How am I doing on time? And then the documents are stored in the bylaws library, and I believe that that is now on the website, so I won't bother going there. Well, maybe I should, just to, by way of example of, you see the, well, let me change, make that a little smaller. Whoop, that's the wrong direction of smallness. Okay, and we have these directories, and under the article change discussion, for instance, we have all the articles with the name, and one which is there's very little contention about, that's sarcasm, as changes for membership.
Yes.
Let's see, and that we are now at revision 8.
Well, as a Slab Creeker, I'm aware I have to attend those meetings now. I want
Well,
presentation.
we could go into that right now. I could show you the maps that I've worked on, but I don't think we should go there.
I bet I should attend your meeting.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Thank you.
Well, not that I
If
have
I
a
may
choice.
speak to that real fast, though,
Yeah.
we will be having feedback sessions where members of the NCAC can come and talk more freely as we come up with our after we've come
Yeah.
up with our recommendations. So
It's a
Okay.
good point. Until we really figure out what we want to say, it's obviously we're gonna, if you have a viewpoint on that, we'd love to have you send an email or use the comment form, which I can get to.
Well, I intend to listen more than speak.
Well, in that case, if you're listening, that works, because there's a very limited time for speaking.
Right.
And just by way of logistics, we run out of time very quickly. Okay.
I will say we had 5 guests attend our meeting last Friday, so there has been great interest. We
Yeah.
appreciate
No,
people
Guy said it
coming.
was really great meeting.
Okay, current bylaws, member comments, so yes. I got an emergency notification, probably high surf. I'll have to ignore that this time. Okay, comments form. And we're in revision 4 of that.
Uh,
But basically we have a form for, and it's not going to work in this, but this is actually an interactive form. So there's a drop-down menu here to indicate the article that you're interested in commenting on when you submit it, the member name, email, which is the email will be expunged or redacted from the record, but we need to have that for interaction. What the comment is, what the current text is, suggested replacement, and ties to other changes that needed to be made. So this is meant to be a single comment on a single paragraph or page. There is a capability of having it general, but if it's a general comment, those are not really possible to respond to other than it may be a general way, and we give ourselves the out that we may not formally respond to something which is not. The implication is that we intend to formally respond to every one of these comments, which is filled out in full. We will have a committee response to each. It may be to accept, or maybe to decline, or maybe accept with changes, but we will have a formal response to every input. We think that's important.
yeah.
Okay. So I think that's the basics of what the system is all about.
Okay. Well, that's a whole new level for me, that's for sure. To have the coding and everything and this putting it in a specific place each time. So hopefully I have other expertise on our committee who will own
Yeah,
that
well,
skill in a short time.
well, having been involved with both the IEEE and Bluetooth, I have been sensitized to making sure you can find things and that there's traceability. Okay,
Yeah.
so This is the kind of backup stuff, and this may or
Tom,
may
you
not
have
be-
a question from Lynn?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, quick question. Are we having legal counsel review these once we get past the feedback sessions?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's,
Okay. Yes.
we didn't really talk about the whole process. We just talked about an internal process. But that is already, that, actually, that's not true. It's in the bylaws. Bylaws updates. There is a section which talks about what the process is for adopting a new set of bylaws.
So
And,
we've been in close communication with Sarah all along, and Sarah's been our
Great. Great.
liaison to the attorney, and we
Perfect.
just can't thank Sarah enough for all of her work on our behalf with that. So
Thank you.
and we're
Yeah.
looking forward to some more feedback from her on some existing questions. But yes, by
Yeah,
the
so-
time we get into the feedback sessions, even we're hoping we will have already heard back from the county attorney. It's kind of an iterative process.
Yeah.
And while I'm taking the floor when I shouldn't probably, but I just want to say we can't thank Tom enough for all the expertise he has brought and the incredible work he has brought. It's really made our committee so much more productive. And a big thanks to Jeff too for all of his work on the website side and helping us with getting all of that done. We just wouldn't be nearly as productive without either of them. And thanks to Mark for his support as we've been going through these changes. We've really been trying to spend quite a bit of time interacting with everybody individually to get input. So thank you.
Any other questions, comments? And I'll just kind of run through this quickly. And if I, please, Randall, look at whether or not somebody's raised their hand and stop me if somebody wants to ask a question. Okay, so basically we're right here. We've done restructure. We've done an editorial pass. We've segmented the text. We're in the process of drafting changes, and we plan to do hosting feedback sessions on each subsection. So what the format of this is, basically I'm just going to expand each one of these as the slides go on. So essentially we evaluated the current structure, logical, consistent, and easy to understand. The answer was no. We consider the graphics. At Nancy's suggestion, we used Robert's Rules of Order format. I've used Robert's Rules of Order for years, decades. Did not realize it had a prototype, a template for bylaws. So that was very useful. And it turned out that with a little bit of finagling, we could actually put it into a format which resulted in our editorial pass. So we reordered the current content. We fixed grammatical errors, format problems, and the order of information. And that's all we did. We made a conscious effort not to make any changes that changed the meaning of anything that was there. And that's our definition of the editorial pass. So what we did, we had a document which had to evolve. I don't know if you have that same constraint. I don't know if you want to start over from the beginning or if you want to modify the current one. Let me say that having read your document, I'm calling it your document, I'd say you need probably some structure. Randall, you are muted.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. I didn't say restructure. Okay. So once we segmented the text into logical groupings, for us, that was easy. The original document was only 7 pages and it had 10 categories with Robert's Rules of Order. And that was a very logical grouping. So that was easy for us. We used this edited text as a baseline for future edits. And we got from the membership, we got tacit approval. Nobody objected to us using this as a baseline going forward. Obviously, there's always a chance that somebody will object in the going down the line, which would be bad form on their part, but but nothing in the rules prevent bad behavior, I suppose. I think that was a value judgment. Sorry. Anyway, so we segmented the text. Question? No. Okay. And then what we're doing now is looking at each individual section, and we can have 1 or 2 members propose actions. Now that's a restriction we have to have because of the open meetings law. We can't have committees of 3 people because that constitutes a meeting, and you can't have a meeting without all the overhead for a meeting. So it's not particularly comfortable, but we couldn't, for me, I'm used to over communicating as opposed to under communicating, but essentially it's working out fine. Once the 1 or 2 people have agreement, hopefully 1 person has agreement, then we'll review it in committee as a whole, and we'll work through that. As you saw in the meetings, we've gone through that at least 8 times. Sometimes we've gone through it and not changed it. So we've actually considered it quite a few times. We update the source, that is our current draft of the bylaws, when we've reached consensus. That doesn't mean that we have to, everybody has to agree, but enough of us agree that we go forward with that. So far, we haven't had any down and out fights about it, but we have yet to make an actual decision, I think.
Well, I was going to say,
Just on Article 1, we made a decision on Article 1,
that's right.
which is the name, which we're now corrected.
All right, I stand corrected. We've made substantial progress. We have 10% of the document by article number completed.
right. I mean,
or 1%, yeah.
we have found
We're not, it's
challenge with
10%. It's 1 out of 10 articles. You got to give me that. Okay. So post-back feedback. Now, this is my recollection of our conversations and also what we think we might want to do. So I want to explicitly label this as speculation, but essentially 1 topic. Each session is 1 topic. We would have a topic on, I suspect we won't have one on the name, but other than that, for the objective, which is, what our organization is all about, the membership, officers, each one of those topics will get a session. We should have at least 1 feedback session. Obviously, if there's a lot of feedback that we need to go back and maybe retrench, we may have more than 1. We will request written feedback. Well, if it's not forthcoming, we'll attempt to document and verify with the commenter. Some people are not comfortable with computers. We're going to try to allow for that, but it's very awkward. Verbal statements are pretty squishy, so we'd really rather have everything in writing.
Yeah.
And one of our internal rules, as I mentioned earlier, is that all the feedback must be addressed, either accept or decline, or possibly somewhere in between. After this feedback sections and comments are addressed, then go for a vote of the membership at hand. And I need to change this because right in between that is approval by the county. So I need to add that.
yes.
Because if they don't say yes, it doesn't matter what we think. That we are chartered by them, so we need to abide by what they can agree to.
Right.
Okay, and that's all I had.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot for our little group to integrate into our processes for a 60+ page document. And I think, as you say, getting it in a logical order. I think it was, I think it made sense the way the process went last time. I'm trying to wrap my head around, what our process is this time that includes all this transparency and is functional. And so this is extremely helpful in getting us to those places where we can start to get into the document that we're dealing with. So thank you very much, Tom.
I do have a couple of observations if you're interested in reading your document. As an editor, I'm not talking about content, just as an
Mhm.
editor.
Right.
The executive summary isn't.
Is not an executive summary.
No.
Is that, yeah.
It's basically it's acknowledgments and important, probably in the appendix, but it's not. It would probably be easier for you if you separated history from vision followed by suggested actions. I got confused several times in reading the document as to whether these were things which were done, intended to be done, and there were no time frames on anything that I could see. It was either immediate or sometime in the future, which are both not very good.
Well, as far as I can
measures.
understand, nothing really did happen or nothing was sustained to update things after the plan was finished. I think they were pretty exhausted and I'm not aware of updates. So I appreciate that observation because it has been troubling to figure out what really happened and what was just suggested. And so we're gonna be asking Sarah to help us understand if the statements that were made were speculative or were actually submitted and then maybe rejected, that we can clean up if they didn't have a life after being speculated upon. So it will be quite a cleanup process. And I've been trying to sort out how much to start over and how much to hold on to that is valuable. And so this process that you introduced me to or us to today, I hope will be very helpful in making those distinctions. So we know exactly kind of what we're working with.
Yeah,
Pretty odd animal right now.
that it is. I think that you purpose what your purpose is of the document and what your audience is probably the premier thing you should start with in formulating a document. The purpose and audience was sort of assumed up front, as nearly as I can tell in the current document.
Mm-hmm.
And an executive summary would have purpose and audience.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And they had plenty of participation by the community, so their audience was very engaged,
Yeah.
but not necessarily clarified in the document.
Well, you have two classes of audience. You have the community itself and the county.
Right. So they both need to be accounted for to understand how the thing functions, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I certainly learned a lot from that and hope to retain it. I'm going to be referencing this and probably contacting you. I wish we had a clone of you. And hopefully we'll have attendance at our meetings that can clarify when we seem to be going off track or if our notations are incorrect. Yes, Kat. We can't hear you, Kat.
So am I concluding correctly that we're going to adopt some of the bylaws approach to our revision process? Because that seems like a good idea to me.
yeah, I think that will, I'd like to get the other members of the committee together. I know Guy has seen this, but I don't believe Lori's getting much of an explanation here today. And so, yes, I think this is the best chance we have to be clear, to share it with the public as we develop the document, and to have transparency throughout. So I think there's for me, there's a pretty big learning curve here as to how to structure and pass this through each meeting and get results that are understandable and clear and able to be shared in a way that's goes into a library. So,
Well, and I really liked, Tom, what you said. You kind of read my mind, because I had notes that were not as succinct as what you said. You said history, vision, suggested actions. And it does bother me that the history is kind of sprinkled all the way through this document. And it's very difficult. I mean, I understand why nothing was done with this document, because it's not clear. The suggested actions kind of stopped short. And so, Tom, that really crystallized things for me. And I think that we could take this document and we could almost adopt that that 3-part outline that you just suggested, and just move things around, delete. There's a lot of things that are repeated, that are iterative in this document, that are not, in my view, necessary. They're just words to take up space. So I don't know if that resonated with anyone else, but history, vision, suggested actions. So there we go.
Yeah, I'd actually tend to want to put history in an appendix. If you want to make an impactful document, you should come out front with what you want.
Yes.
And why you want it. And here's the history behind why we want this.
Yeah, see appendix for history.
Yeah.
And I would add that that's what we've done in other updates since 2018, is information that the community felt was valuable as a reference, as some sort of historical accounting or context, that we did put those things in an appendice, or other pieces that maybe weren't land use specific, but the community felt were related to land use in one way or another. That's where all of those documents go. And I think, Tom, where we're at right now is reviewing the community plan to see what should stay, what should go, what should be moved. So yes, I would say you're tracking right on. Definitely more structured in your comments as to what we've been visiting about. So thank you for that. Definitely, for sure.
Okay. Glad I could
Thank
be
you,
of
Tom.
use.
You bet. Well, we'll be revisiting you and knocking on your door probably more than you could believe.
Well, I'll attend your meetings whenever I can. I don't promise everyone, but when I can. And if you do have specific questions, you know my email.
There you go. And
Fairly
Nancy-
straightforward.
What is
Nancy's
it, Tom?
Right to
What is your
attend as
email?
well.
Okay, so look at my name, tom@sipe.us.
Tom at
Sipe, SIEP.us.
.us. You have your own domain.
Oh, I do. Well, actually, my family has their domain. Everybody, but yes.
Okay.
So
Yes.
I'll update these documents as I mentioned, and I will pass that along to you, Randall, once they're updated, and that should be fairly shortly.
Okay. I won't rely on my photos of the slides then.
Well, and when you get your own website structure, your own library, then I'll you can have it. Until then, those documents will live in Administrivia, I think. I don't remember where I put it. Wherever I put it last time, I'll put it there this time. But you'll have a link directly to it.
Okay, and we'll work with Jeff to help do that with the website.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Okay, so we jump right into the presentation, the review, I'm sorry, of the written Oregon Public Meeting Law guidance from County Council that Sarah, you have for us. Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you.
If it's okay, I would like to send that off to the group. I have a time-sensitive meeting. I'm testifying at the state legislature at a hearing on Thursday, and I have to meet with our attorneys it's on the BIOP. So if
Okay.
it's okay, can I jump into the questionnaire
Sure,
comments?
that'd be
So then
great.
that way I can jump off and then, yeah, I'm sorry about that. This just came up. And so, yes.
That's
something to
great
do.
because we want the written guidance anyway, so that'll give us a
Perfect.
chance to look at it.
Yep. Okay.
Sarah, could you send that to me as well, please?
I would love to, Nancy.
It's, I think
how-
I'm guessing it'll apply to us too.
Yes,
So
it
how
will.
are you sending that to the NCAC website or what are you doing?
I'm
Where do you
going
find
to
it?
send it to Jeff and Nancy and Randall. So, and
Okay.
then we can, yes, and then we
I'll
can
share it.
distribute it. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is what is this that you did?
It's the written, so all of the protocol and talking to county council about the blog, about public meeting law, all of that as we are all moving forward. So I just have something in writing that county council and I have put together
Okay,
To guide
So-
our work.
to guide the work, right? To basically affirm what Tom has shared today in his presentation.
okay. Is it vastly different than what he has shared?
No, it is absolutely consistent with what he has shared. There
Wow.
was a request that I get something from county council about that. So I've been
Cool.
working with county council to get that done.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so questionnaire ideas. So I have two documents to share with you. I will send these off as well. The first one is a compilation of, I would say, more lofty questions. And, again, this is a starting point. It's something as, as we look at a questionnaire, not a survey. So we're starting at ground zero. I have several pieces of surveys and questionnaires that other CACs have done and the work that the county did in the late 90s when the community plans and the CACs were initially developed and created. I have reworked them for Nescoin. And again, this is just very rough. So you all can take them, leave them, tell me you hate them. You're not going to hurt my feelings. The other is a more structured questionnaire that we recently completed for Hebo, Beaver, and Cloverdale, which you may like and decide you want to use. And the format of that is a little different. So I'm going to do a share screen. And I'm going to go ahead and blow this up so you guys can see it. Okay. So, and I've grouped these intentionally into what I think would be maybe, if we want to categorize the questionnaire, and certainly, again, some of these you might find repetitive. There might be a way to put some of these together. But the first one would be, obviously some sort of demographic information. What is your residential status for Nescoin, your ownership? How many people are in your household? And how much time do you and your family spend in Nescoin? So if you wanted to know a little bit more about the participant, those are typically what we have used in the past to get that, kind of getting to know you information. And then something about I enjoy Nescoin because this could be, you could add, I enjoy living in Nescoin, or I am in Nescoin because. And then things like, what is your favorite thing about Nescoin? In the community plan, looking at the survey that was done in the late 90s, which I could not find the specific data for. I know I have it scanned somewhere. But if you look on page, I think it's 12 of the community plan, it ranks a lot of the priorities for residents that came out of that initial survey. But, Nescoin is a small, has a small village character, and what's most important about that are things like quietness, peacefulness, quaintness. We can add any words in there we want. And then do you agree that this is what Nescoin is? And is this the character? Basically, is this the character? Do you agree? And is this the type of character you want for Nescoin? Nescoin's community plan places a high value on. So again, if you look at page 12 of that survey, of the community plan with those surveys, it ranks in order the things that the community prioritized back in the late 90s. If you wanted to kind of fashion a question to specifically tease out, do people still feel the same? Or are the, what now has more value? One thing that I think would be good as a question to put in is, do you feel the existing zoning regulations uphold the community's desire to preserve the small village atmosphere and to protect the environment? So one of the things, kind of going back to Tom's point, the community plan is aspirational. The directives from the community plan are administered and implemented through your zoning codes, right? So the zoning codes are the hook. It's not the community plan. And so the question, that could be an important question, because what we need to know is are the zoning codes doing their job?
And
yes or no?
Sarah, I think it'd be really helpful, to your point, in that particular bullet, which I think is a really important one, is to tie that together for the unknowing. So if I've just moved to Nescoin from, Baker, Oregon, or California or whatever, something that says zoning, what implements a community plan are the zoning a declarative statement at the outset, so that very short, so that people know that connection and it comes to mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great point, Lynn, because then it helps the reader understand. I'm not sure community members fully understand. It's not the community plan that decides development. The community plan is aspirational. It's the zoning regulations that decide how things happen. And then, you could do some sort of a rating or ranking. So things like, Nescoin community assets. What are the most important assets of the community? This is an important planning question, because what this is going to do is we start looking at policies and regulations for housing. So we've got Senate Bill 406 coming into the fold, or even things like water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, different needs, transportation, parking, parks, beach access. This helps us understand what is most important to the community. And then, so we have community assets, and then we have services. So sorry, I just kind of grouped those together in my statement. But what is the most important community service, or what services require the most attention in folks' opinion? So, starting with kind of demographics, then a group of just community feel questions, drilling down more specifically then in the next batch to assets and services. And then some of the other questions, what do you feel is the most important issue facing Nescoin? Major concerns in the Nescoin community. Again, we could ask them to rate, to rank, or select all that apply. It could be development, rate of growth, infrastructure, road conditions, lack of law enforcement, if that's the case, traffic and congestion, preservation of natural resources and environment, housing, walking paths, And then, you know, if you wanted to do some more fill in the blanks, what is your least favorite thing about Nescoin? What would you change about your community? We could drill down a little bit more into the rate of growth. You know, then looking forward, because these community plans are intended to be a 10, 20-year plan. So what would you like to see change in Nescoin over the next 20 years? And then what type, so then these are more civic and social. What type of community events do you enjoy? What type of community events would you like to see? What community resources do you use? So given some examples there. What resources need improvement or better maintenance? What additional small businesses and commercial enterprises would you like to see in Nescoin? We could add some to give some examples, like more restaurants, more parks. And again, this does tie back then as we start looking at the community plan and zoning. What does the community want to see, right? Because we have to plan for it, literally plan for it through your zoning ordinances to make something happen or not. And then just in here also had some things about which I think this might be too premature in this questionnaire, but things I'm seeing in other communities. You know, they want to know how many CAC meetings have you attended in the last 12 months? Cutting of trees is becoming more focused in the conversations as we see more urban infill in our communities. Building height maximum calculations. Nescoin has a pretty tight way to calculate height. I will tell you from a staffing standpoint, our office really appreciates how height is calculated in Nescoin, because an average can be manipulated. We all know it, and it's very cut and dry in Nescoin. I have seen, though, there are some areas on steeply sloped properties, and I'll use some properties in Sahali as the example. The steeper the slope is, the harder that is to do, because the parallel plane, if it's a steep slope, really doesn't allow much for the height of the structure, because the parallel slope and the building height goes with it. So that can be tricky, but overall, I think your methodology is the best that we've seen. But you might want to talk about it. The community might want to talk about it. And then lighting standards, dark skies, preserving night sky. That's something that we're seeing a big trend for. So but those may come later. But again, just very broad questions. We could drill these down, but these largely speak to the community elements that make their way to and from a land use planning platform, either before, during, or after. So I'm going to stop sharing that. Any questions about that? Yeah, Kat.
So, I think this is excellent.
Yeah.
Great place to start. These are open-ended questions, and you've done these surveys before. Is there any advantage to having more of a multiple choice format? Like choose all that apply? Like we could even take, you know, on page 13, we could even take these bullet pointed items, you know, and I mean, I don't know if this is going to be an interactive web-based like Survey Monkey or whatever, but then you know how you can choose all that apply,
Yes.
or number them from 1 to 5. And then we don't have this. I'm just trying to figure out how to process an open-ended narrative.
So Kat, thank you for that. Let me show you my next example, because I think what we did for Hebo, Beaver, and Cloverdale get right to what you're speaking to. So let me go ahead and jump into that then. Are there any more questions about the questions in the questionnaire framework from the first one?
My question is, how does a business owner participate? Because we're saying residential, and I think we need to include there are residential members of the community, there are business owners, there are employees who don't live there but are there every day, and deal with the community. So I just think it's important for us to, I don't know that those people, I know the business people will want to be engaged.
Yep.
But we need to create a common format and let them, but identify them in those it's business, residents, employee, or health safety worker,
Yep.
and other renter, right? Can a renter
Well,
participate?
a renter is a resident.
So,
Right, so
okay,
if the
okay.
bylaws committee defines eligibility, right, there's all of that work going on, but to your point, Lynn, I think I think we need to clearly, state who this questionnaire is intended for. And so let me show you the one that we just did, and we can add, I think you'll
Great.
appreciate the header,
Yep.
and we can talk about how we want to refine that. But yes, I think the businesses absolutely need to participate. Okay, so can you guys see this? So this one is very polished. The other one I just showed you is a series of raw questions. This is what we did for Beaver, Hebo, and Cloverdale. So obviously we could change the header, right? We started with the purpose of what it is. So we could say the purpose of this questionnaire. We have initiated the land use planning process to update community plans. We say what the community plans are for. They help inform the county on needs and desires of the community and will aid in long-range planning efforts for community services and projects for housing, public services, transportation, and facilities. Community needs not accounted for are also important, so please share any additional information after. So we had what are we missing at the end, right? Because there's always something that we're missing. So Kat, to your point, we asked them to rank what is most important. And so you can see we have several community needs. Some things that are not on this survey that would be important to NESCO I think would be things like beach access, hazard mitigation planning. We can take some of these in and out, or just add if the committee finds that what's there is relevant and we'd like to add more. So this starts out with ranking community needs. We talk about public transportation, right? Because that is a planning element. So especially question number 2, would you like to see other transportation services in your community? Buses, bike, electric vehicles. This helps us with if we decide in the community plan, one of the things we want to hit on as a priority is multimodal paths throughout the community. That's really important because then when Chris Lady and I go after ODOT transportation grants, that's where we want that information to be housed, is because then we can say we have done the work and this community would like to see these things. So that's always a good question to have in there. Housing. Are you in need of housing? What kind of housing would you like to see in your community? And so with this, we defined what workforce housing is, what low-income housing is, very low income, or all of the above, so that people also had a guide to understand, well, what is workforce housing? Right? What does that mean in relation to rents? So, and then again, it was multi-choice, all of the above. Childcare, Tillamook County has a childcare desert, or is considered to be a childcare desert. So, do we want a question about childcare? Healthcare services. So again, from a planning element, if there is a need, do we want to look at zoning regulations to make sure we have opportunities for clinics or medical offices or some sort of social service wraparound amenities where we're making room for those to be considered in the community? Safety. So do you feel safe? Are you prepared for a disaster? Do you feel protected? From man-made disasters, and would you like information on emergency preparedness? We have a lot of, different committees, a lot of different work going on. So that might be something just as an overall questionnaire. Would you like to see civic centers, YMCA, trade school facilities, libraries, meeting spaces for public and private events in your community? We have the golf course, right? And the clubhouse, but the question remains, do we need to look at the planning, the land use elements of your community plan and implementing ordinances to make room intentionally for these services if this is something the community, and the amenities if this is something the community wants? Also things such as a food bank or a veteran area for a veterans office or some sort of government office. And then public utilities in prioritizing upgrades and repairs. What's most important to you? We added broadband on there. Solid waste, and then things about recycling, which would be helpful then to bring back later to the county, to, solid waste, and others. Or again, when we're going for grants, probably one of the most important things about a community plan is that when Public Works and I, or solid waste, or some sort of hazard mitigation with Randy Thorpe, the community plans, when this stuff is listed in there, that's what gives us leverage to get funding to do work. Building rehabilitation, this is something, especially in some areas throughout the county, having opportunities and support for building rehabilitation is a big deal, and it's needed. That might not be something you want in your questionnaire. Destination management, a couple of questions about that. And then, would you like to see creation of opportunities for recreation and sporting events? And again, this is something that could be modified. Maybe it's not sporting events, maybe it's more recreational amenities or protection of natural resources that also provide recreational opportunities in the community. And then about you, optional. So this was where we, took some of that other demographic stuff and we just condensed it to 2 questions. And then, is there anything else? And so this is something we could put online. We did create this so that folks could go online and take the survey. We had paper copies so that people could get them at the post offices or somewhere, fill them out. At the bottom, it shows where you can send them to. We could have them go to the Neskowin CAC email. We did a deadline, and actually because we know that there are multilingual community members in the tri-community area, we had this done in Spanish as well. So if that's something that you feel would be something you would like for Neskowin, then we can convert it. But so we had a QR code, we did little posters and put them around. So yeah. So I'll be honest with you, I really like the structure of this. I think when we get down to what's user friendly, what's going to take people 5 minutes or less to do, unless, they want to write to us and tell us more. But this really does hit those high points of what is it we're trying to figure out. What are the needs of the community? So any questions about this one? Comments? Yeah, Kat.
Of course I have a question.
Please.
So until you got to the bottom, I was just guessing about the phrase building rehabilitation and destination management. So is that like remodeling? And then I mean, okay, I have a master's degree. If I don't know what destination management is, what are the chances other people might not know either? So could we simplify?
Oh yeah, I'm just going to send this to you as a template. And yeah, and then this is just another example. I think, we could simplify, we could call it something else. Destination management is your tourism related facilities. It's things like resorts, RV parks, all of the
Oh,
above. So we can definitely add a different phrase to it. What I like about this survey format, Kat, is to your point and to some points Lynn's made before. This is a very simple, it's yes or no, rank. It's a high level questionnaire to get us started. But we can change the categories, we can change the questions or the answers. But even in that area, I think we got close to 75 surveys back, which those are pretty little towns. So that was communities. We thought that was a pretty good success.
that's wonderful. So
Mhm.
is building rehabilitation zoning that allows remodeling?
It's what it is. Yeah, no, so what it meant for those communities, because the communities feel there's a lot of dilapidated and degraded buildings that are in disrepair, was building rehabilitation. Oh my gosh, just in the sense of, if this is a priority for the community to clean up some of these buildings, let's make sure it's a priority, and then maybe we start creating action items to help find the resources to get that done.
Okay, so like abandoned, dilapidated buildings.
Or lived in.
Oh,
Yeah,
or lived in. Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
it can be pretty, right. And so maybe that comes out of a Nescoan questionnaire, because that may not be the case for the Nescoan community, right? So maybe we add something else there that didn't apply in those communities that would apply in Nescoan. But it's just more of I think it's the community needs. Which of the following are the most important to you? And then we plug in what we're anticipating people are going to want to speak to, what we think might be the most important needs, rather than leave some of these questions open-ended. So if you didn't want to leave them open-ended, this is a way we could do it.
Is it easy to remodel in Nescoan now? Does zoning allow that?
It depends. It does. The zoning allows it, but it depends on if you're in the Nescoan Coastal Hazards Overlay Zone, if you're in the Flood Hazard Overlay Zone, if you need a geologic hazard report. So there's all these nuances depending on the degree of remodeling and where you're at that could add layers of review to that.
Because I'm just thinking a lot of the homes in Nescoan are old and
Mhm.
may need to be remodeled. Typical thing is they're sold, right? And then somebody wants to update.
Mhm.
So these
So you're
would
saying
seem,
that could be easier, it could be hard.
Right. And there's factors already existing that are going to make that determination. But the
Okay.
bottom line is that it is allowed. This, for building rehabilitation, was more of, we get a lot of code enforcement complaints about dilapidated buildings. The reality is most of them are actually lived in.
Oh,
So
wow.
do we need to get funding? Do we need to find funding and resources to help people
Mhm.
repair their buildings or remove them, depending on what it is? You're talking about an area that has some pretty serious poverty and, marginalized communities. So that was the intent of that, was to see what people thought so we could find resources for them. So that wasn't more of a planning thing, that was more of a help thing.
Okay, and then another question under public transportation, is there,
Mhm.
why is it that Uber and Lyft don't exist in Tillamook County?
Great question. I think everybody wants to know that, Kat.
I mean, because I want to take them to the airport. But someone told me they're not allowed.
I have no idea.
There's no law about that or rule.
So that
Okay.
wouldn't be a planning thing. That would just be more of a service thing. I think this is related to buses, bikes. So this is where we're looking at, multimodal ped paths, etc.
Okay,
So
so,
I think rather than review the whole questionnaire
Mm-hmm.
thing at this time, we need to do that internally.
Mhm.
This
Okay.
is a great starting point, Sarah, for um, reviewing what needs to go into a
Mhm.
questionnaire. I mean, it's more of a survey than a questionnaire, I think, but
Mhm.
whatever, that's our job to go through it. And this
Mhm.
gives us a great jumping off point with a lot of relevant points to touch on that you've provided. So thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what have we exhausted the things that we're asking of you today, Sarah?
I think Lynn had
Yeah,
one
I just have
question. Yeah.
one more- So thank you, ditto, to previously made comments on this topic. Only question I have, which is really important, it seems to me, particularly with regard to Nesco Inn, is the tax question. Because all the what Oregon likes to do is ask people what they want, and then they get them and they say, what on earth happened here? And Multnomah County is struggling mightily with that right now. You know, because the tax tolerance we're at a very high level, not in Tillamook County, but we need to do something to get that dimension here. Because I don't like the people I know who are waitresses in Nesco Inn, right? Who can't afford the housing in Nesco Inn. And I don't know where they'd fall. It's none of my business where they fall on that list.
Mhm.
But the parallel part of that is we want this, but where is that tax base for that? And that's something the county is struggling with, I know right now, not having enough tax base for things that traditionally the county has done. That's part of why we have a conversation in Nesco Inn 2 years ago or a year ago about let's be a city and provide, you know, so I just don't know how we do that, but it's a really critical question. And Oregon has forgotten to ask it for decades now. And we're paying a huge price for that. We have to understand that anything we do for people that they can't do for themselves has to be paid for in the financial structure of the state. And we're way up to our ceiling on many fronts right now
Mhm.
for a state with our economy. So anyway,
Yeah.
some financial dimension seems really important in the times we live in.
Mhm. Well, and I would say, like, the housing question, identifying workforce, low income, lower income, affordable housing, that gets to the heart of what you're talking about, because then what we do with that, especially in relation to Senate Bill 406, where you're going to see those needs met, is by allowing duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. That's why we have the property tax exemption. We've got the multi-family housing rental fund. You might want to consider some areas where maybe an apartment would be appropriate, because the rents traditionally become lower with the more higher density you have.
Well, and there used to be apartments in Nesco Inn, right? I've lived during that time. There were apartments in Nesco Inn. They went away and, some of them converted to individual condominium properties or whatever. But anyway, there's two sides of the problem. The person who needs the housing, and then how does this all get paid for? If you're an owner today and you have your family's cabin from 3 generations ago, and the property taxes are already taking you up to your level of financial sustainability, we need to hear that, because those people have issues too.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, even just things like, the ADU, the legislature passed, a bill that would allow for an exemption, like a 5-year tax exemption for ADU. So we're looking at that too. So yeah, I am sending these to Randall and Jeff. And then you guys will distribute them.
Lynn, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, there needs to be a question, would you support higher taxes?
Yep.
Right. So we will.
Would you
we can go
support
through it.
higher taxes to pay for amenities? Yes
That
or
is a
no?
question you can put on. You could put something
Yeah.
like that on to support acquisition of lands. It's just more of an FYI. Some of that is not going to be fleshed out in the community plan, but that's, you know, Tom's point with the appendices, maybe that's where we put some of that stuff.
Yep.
So, but yeah, so I just sent that off.
Thank you.
Yes,
Great,
you are
thank
so
you.
welcome. I will get that written statement to you all. And then I do need to, the attorneys are waiting for me. So is
Okay.
there anything else you need from me today before I go?
Thank you so much, Sarah.
My pleasure. Okay, I'll talk to you guys again soon. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we've got a lot of input today, and that's going to be very helpful for us. Let's see, so we're down to number 8, discuss current community plan and implementing ordinances based on committee members' individual notes, begin section by section review. So I sent you guys something. Did you get an email from me
Yep.
with some questions? And I'm not sure the last piece is worth discussing, but certainly some of the breaking this up, just like the bylaws committee did, to have people take on different tasks and potentially work in twos or individuals, depending on what kinds of parts of the community plan people want to take on. I would tend to say Doc Sievert there, he's going to take on the rubber hit the roads. He's going to want to take on the implementing ordinances. As far as I can tell, I would maybe predict that he would want to take on the implementing ordinances. I'm more interested in the aspirational elements of the plan. With the direction we got from Tom today, which I'm going to have to take a while to wrap my head around to understand how to proceed and notate and present. That's a lot more documentation than I'm used to providing. But what are your thoughts on areas and breaking it into some tasks that people take on? Or is it too early to do that, and that we still need some general discussion of the structure of the community plan and reorienting the structure to what Tom was saying about purpose, who the audience is, and history? I think we,
Well, I
in my,
think that we need to address the structure, and it might be something as simple as deciding to adopt Tom's outline, or at least decide on what the outline is going to be. And then once we've done that, and I think we could do two things at once. We also could get the questionnaire going, or the survey, whatever we want to call it. So we could get that going, and then while we're waiting for those results, we could address the structure of the document so that it's a little easier to handle.
Yeah, even just the idea of what to, in reading through it, what to eliminate, what actually serves the purpose of this new community plan,
Well,
but retains the integrity of the original one, which the values are stated. Like in the questionnaire, we might have one of the questions that reviews the values from the community plan and says, do you still embrace these, or do you have, would you eliminate some of these, or would you add to these? I mean, that's the gist upon which the other community plan was based, is those value statements from their survey. So they went to that much work. I think it's somewhat enshrined or worthy of being assessed as a whole in the early stages, so we know if those values are still intact, or if we have resistance to those values, in order to clarify who the village is at this point in time, and if they are consistently feeling those values are important to determining the rest of the community plan. I mean, the whole community plan was really based on those values. So what do we do with those? I don't think we toss them
Isn't
out.
that the
start
survey?
over.
Randall,
me?
isn't that the purpose of the survey?
Well, it would be if we didn't already have a community plan, but we have a community plan that has established values. So we're talking about revisions. If you're going to revise things and you already have something that seems pretty substantial, I think you need to give people the option of looking at what exists and saying if they disagree with that or not, rather than
Well,
saying,
wouldn't-
we're just
well,
going to
wouldn't that-
start over.
Okay, well, I'm not saying we start over. I'm saying we look at the community plan as it exists, and
Right.
we propose an outline, and probably and we could just start with history, vision, suggested action. So, and then the survey that we get back from the public would inform us as to which elements of the plan need to be retained and people still believe in. And the second stage of your concern would be there'd be a meeting, there'd be a community meeting,
Well,
correct?
there's probably going to
Yeah.
be a meeting about each one of these
A series
main issues
of
on
meetings.
the outline. Yeah.
So for instance, I mean, I think the committee could look at history, and the committee could look at the vision as it exists, and we could you know, we could edit and revise. I mean, I'm just saying from an editorial point of view. I don't mean from a delete or accept point of view. I just I mean, I think we could do that, but I think it's too soon to break the whole document up. We don't know where we're going. I don't.
Uh-huh. Well, the current document takes us somewhere. And I think that rather than redetermining where we're going to take the community.
No, it doesn't. I disagree with you. It's 1999. It's years old. It hasn't been implemented. Some things
Well-
are still valuable. It doesn't have suggested actions, nothing that's been acted upon. We don't know in the last 20 years what's changed for people who live here. So I beg to disagree with you. I think that there are some things in the vision of the document that are still applicable that we could like trim down so it's not such a bulky thing. And there's history that could be summarized, and there's an executive summary that could be looked at.
So here's a thought.
Yeah.
And so I think what we're getting are some really good tools to help us move forward. So I think Sarah's tools are helpful. I think Rand, your efforts to kind of get us structured in a way to tackle the community plan and to keep values in place, et cetera. I don't know, you guys would know better than me, but it seems to me, and this is what we did on the previous community plan, is we just set aside some Saturdays and got together in a room with a whiteboard and just said, okay, these are the values, or we're going to put out there. And it's hard to break things into separate groups at this point, because particularly on a Zoom format, because you kind of get these unrelated parts, and it's more like, it seems like to me we should be starting at the top of the pinnacle and going broader rather than being broad and trying to get narrower. And so I don't know if we could do that, if we could find some kind of group collaborative whiteboard laptop times where it's not a Zoom meeting, and take the original document and say, okay, I mean, if we're going to write a book or we're going to write a plan, let's do the table of contents first, and let's all agree on those table of contents. And then let's take those table of contents and outline the key points. And let's say there's only 5 or 6, we're going to keep it that tight. And then we break down into, okay, so who wants to deal with sewers? You know, who wants to, or whatever, aspirational sewer goals or water, it would be more appropriately water goals, you know, whatever. But it seems we need to, and that's hard to do in a Zoom forum, because what you tend to get to text editing, and we're not ready to text edit. We need to kind of create our outline and work to broaden that outline as we
Like,
go.
are you talking about a storyboard kind of?
Yeah, but I think
Like a
what I'm saying
storyboard
is
with,
a collaborative process where we all write that outline together. And we can do it by Zoom. I've done it by Zoom. It's just longer, harder, and you keep kind of, and it pushes you into a document as opposed
Yes.
to discussion. And to me, if we were all together and had the community plan that was written before this, 20 years old, point well taken, and Rand, you're kind of, here's how we have to get to, you know, put the history in the back. Let's have an executive summary that qualifies as an executive summary. And my preference would be, and let's set a page limit so that someone actually uses it, and an expectation for some outcomes. So there's some outcomes and timelines. However we want to do it, but it seems to me a little bit of our challenge is that we're trying to create a composite, and we keep trying to do that with documents. And I think the faster way to get that, or a faster possibility, may be just a work session that we take away shared documents and outlines and even assignments.
I agree with you, Lynn. I think that's an excellent idea. And it occurs to me that the Driftwood Public Library has a meeting hall. I don't know if they have a whiteboard. I know that I could probably arrange for us to meet at my church, which does have a whiteboard and has internet. That would be in Lincoln. That would be Faith in Lincoln City. I know that the Driftwood Library in South Lincoln City has a community room with a whiteboard and with internet.
Okay, Lynn, Kat, let Tom step in here about probably public meeting law.
Good guess. You can't do that.
Yeah,
Unless you invite everybody, you can't have a party.
oh,
You're
we can't-
muted. Can't we record the session?
No, they have to
that's-
be able to speak.
We can have, if we can have a work that can be open to the public. We can declare a public meeting and have a public meeting, and it's a work session. And
That's
everyone who wants to
absolute-
come on Saturday and watch us work with a whiteboard to create a table of contents can come.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely true. It's
So
just sounded
that's the way
like
you
that
do it,
wasn't
is you
what
just
was.
say it.
Yeah.
Everyone's welcome. We're doing
So-
it.
You'd also need to make it a hybrid meeting so that people online could attend.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Would ultimately
then
be
have it noticed with, a week in advance and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. But yes, you can
Yeah.
do that.
So another venue for that's pretty sweet venue is Nesquin Valley School in its center room. We've had NCAC meetings there, and it's very accommodating and comfortable
Oh,
and nearby.
Okay.
So I do think that we will want to have meetings, hybrid meetings with the public involved, I think as soon as we can, but we have to be pretty clear when we're asking people to drive out to someplace and hang out on a day, that we are clearly organized to get something done that day so that they feel like they're coming along with us and have some ownership in that process. So most of what I've heard from bylaws committee is that we're at the beginning stages of organizing this, and there are comments that can be made in written form. But if you engage the public in this with us to do it, it gets pretty complicated and pretty
No.
long pretty quickly.
No.
So I think
I'm not
I
suggesting
understand what
public
you're-
involvement. I'm not,
Right.
there's a difference. We can have a meeting open to the public, not for public, it's an organizing meeting of the people who volunteered to do this work. And they can be there. And they
and
can
have
sit there.
questions at the end or something.
Yeah,
they can
or
have questions at the end.
Yeah, yeah. They don't have to, in fact, if I were a member of the public, I wouldn't want to be there. It's like, why would I want to sit through that? I want to bring in my, whatever I'm concerned about. But if they want to watch it, and we certainly can make it a Zoom meeting where everyone can watch and listen, that's
Mhm.
still a public meeting.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but I like what you just said, Lynn, about creating, and I think of it, they do this in movies, when they have a concept for a movie, they create a storyboard, or authors do this when they get ready to write a book. They create the like six boxes, and each box is, it's, well, I mean, in a literary form, it's the setting, it's the problem, the characters, the beginning action, I'm sorry, then the problem, and then the resolution. So, I mean, our categories are going to be different. We even have them. We have the categories here in this existing document. It's just we want them to look different. And I agree with you, Lynn, be shorter, because nobody can digest this document. It's too many words.
Well, and Ran is spot on that it is, we have it is there, it is in place, and we are to update it. And sitting there working parallel with it and the to be document and figuring out organization, and the narrative is actually the easiest part to write, I think, in many respects. It's harder when people start fighting over words and sentences and ideas before they have the framework. And I'm just
Yes.
proposing that we create the framework or get organized. We do it, and the
Mhm.
Nesquin Valley School would be great. We could do it in the living room of my house if we wanted. It's not going to be, and if it's a public meeting, people can sit there at the dining room table or whatever. And I'm fine
Okay.
with that. I'd rather not do that. I'd rather be in a
Oh.
public meeting place with parking and stuff. So the Nesquin Valley School, or a church in Lincoln City, any of those sound great.
So,
So the
Yeah.
purpose of this meeting would be, it would be a working meeting of our steering committee in an effort to outline the document that will become the community plan.
And then assign, to Rand's opening point on our agenda today, then ask, and Rand's prerogative as chair is to either tell us to do it or ask us who wants to do it in various things. But Rand then gets to say, okay, now we've got the outline, and I would strongly argue for a timeline as well, and a length line. But then here are the components, and I'm going to ask these people to take on these roles or ask for volunteers or whatever. And then we can be on that work plan. But to do that
Yes.
with that already in place community plan as a document that we're not looking at here while we're talking to each other, and we're also trying to create a new document. And maybe it's because I'm 70. It just is hard to me. It's hard to put those three pieces together in a Zoom thing.
No, I agree, and I affirm your suggestion. I like it.
Okay. Well, I would suggest that we each kind of do some homework about our storyboard or our structure, or what we learned from Tom today about having this get a more logical sequencing. And so look at the document that exists,
Yeah.
see how you break out who the audience is, the community and the county. I'm sorry, the purpose of this, which you can derive, I think, from the narrative enough to write up the purpose, and who the audience is, both the community and the county, and get some opening sense of what the structure might be. Barbara, do you have an observation to help us?
looking for the audio, sorry,
Okay.
or the video. I was under perhaps the misimpression that Sarah received a grant several months ago that was to
Yeah.
help you in this process.
Yeah.
And yet I've heard nothing about that today. So
I know.
can you update me on that?
I have been expecting it at every meeting and it just keeps not happening. So I'm trying to go along and understand what we can do. Without that assistance, Tom's provided some help today for structure,
Absolutely.
but yeah, they were supposed to come in. I mean, we held up waiting for them to come and say, here's how we suggest you do it. Yes,
Uh,
Tom.
I do have, the structuring, I can offer my services to help you try to figure that out. I have some ideas on how you might want to break things out. I don't know what form you want to do. I could just mark up the PDF as an example of how to.
No, I think I agree with Lynn. I think we need to do like, we can't start at the bottom with the whole thing.
Well,
You know,
He
what I'm
wasn't
suggesting
suggesting.
is that you move things around such that you can see what's there.
Right. Yes, Barbara.
I just worry that you're going to spend some time doing something and then this outside group is going to come in and tell you what you need to do over again. And that's really wasting everybody's time. So my suggestion is to really corner Sarah into when is this going to happen? When can we expect it to happen? And why hasn't it happened?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm aware of that after 3 years of work on a survey, and I just got a survey thrown at us that everybody seems to be comfortable with, except for me. But so I think, yeah, the promises need to be fulfilled for us to understand if our work is for naught. I do believe that getting together and having public meetings is one of my big goals. And so I'm glad to hear that from both Lynn and Kat. But I feel very unprepared to have that meeting yet. And thinking that somebody's going to come in, as Barbara points out, and say, no, here's how you're going to do it.
Yep.
Which
Yep. I
I've been
think-
kind of not happy about from the beginning when I heard that, because it was like, well, our community has the capability to do that. So we're still looking at a void here between what was promised and what's being delivered.
Well,
And it just
well, what do we got to
brings us
lose by
out.
having a working meeting?
So here's
And-
a thought, just a thought. And Barbara, I want to thank you because first of all, this goes to the state made an investment this time years ago, 20 years ago. The first question we asked is, who's going to help us do this? And it was like,
Right.
well, no one, you're going to do it yourselves. And so, we volunteered. Some of us worked for, 5 or 6 years. We need to say Sarah, and Sarah's very straightforward. Sarah, where is our consultant? Because we're ready. We're ready for the consultant. You're handing us these pieces, but we should not convene, because it's exactly right. If the consultant comes in after we've done all the work and reformats it, none of us are going to be happy. Rand,
No.
legitimately, it's not fair. So let's find out where that consultant is. And if there's not going to be one, then the other thing we need to do is just say to the county and the state, gosh, we thought there was funding for this. We thought they passed or got a grant to do this. Where is that money?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm not interested in doing too much more today as far as an action plan, except for to say, if you have ideas about how to organize this, including Tom, I think that would be very helpful for all of us to be able to think about this with a clear structure. But I'm not ready to set a public meeting and do anything yet.
No.
Because we need some straight answers about how this process is being managed. And I can do part of it, but if Sarah's going to override it, then I'm just stuck out here in the wind. So thank you for pointing that out, Barbara. And I've been listening, but I've also been squirming, going like, where's that help we were going to get? And Tom has provided a really great way to organize this and to better understand how to document it. But we need that other missing piece of the consultant who's theoretically going to put some structure to this and help enable us to do our public work and to help organize our own individual contributions to this.
Yeah.
So
So,
it's
committee, while we're still in public meeting, I'm writing an email right now to Sarah. And Barbara, you said this very succinctly. You said there were 3 questions. I said, "Hi, Sarah, the committee discussed next steps today. One thing that came up was that the county promised a consultant to come and show us how we do this process. So is there a consultant?" What's the second question?
and
When are they arriving?
yes,
When
when will it begin?
Are they arriving? And
I would
And
like
if
to
there
see
isn't gonna
copy
be
of
a
the grant,
consultant-
because the grant will tell you exactly what
Yeah.
they're being asked to do.
Yeah, send us a copy of the grant that you received so we understand
So-
what to
so-
expect.
send us a copy of the grant.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, yeah, if
Please
we're
send-
if we're the impact zone, we need to know what the impact is.
Send it to
anticipated.
Randall.
Send it to Randall.
Sure.
Please send Randall a copy of the grant so we know what to expect. Now, by reading this aloud, I'm complying with public meeting laws, correct?
I believe so.
Yes,
Okay,
that's my understanding.
okay,
We
so
all
I'm just,
agree to that.
So
I'm just
copy
sending
in,
it to Sarah, so it says, it's
No, wait,
asked
wait,
those
wait.
3 questions.
you need to copy in admin to that so that Jeff has a record of the
Okay.
email.
Admin,
Uh,
oh, it's not popping up. Is it
Uh,
Jeff?
Admin at nescoincac.org.
Wait a minute, admin
At
at
nescoincac.org.
nescoincac.org.
org.
Oh, there it came up. Golly, I had to get the whole thing. Okay, so hi, Sarah. The committee discussed next steps today. One thing that came up was that the county promised a consultant to come and show us how we do this process. So is there a consultant? When are they arriving? Please send Randall a copy of the grant so we know what to expect.
Pretty
Thank you,
straightforward.
Barbara.
We are waiting for this clarification before we move forward.
That's yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Got it.
Thanks so much.
Okay. It is 3 minutes till 4. I'm trying to limit these meetings to 2 hours.
Very
And
good.
I would really appreciate it if we can keep it at that. So I'm going to, well, Barbara's our existing public and Nancy are 2 public participants. Do you have, Nancy or Barbara, do you have any more to add or as a public?
I'll just say that I'm happy that you have invited the bylaws committee and Tom to be able to speak on our processes, because we were very much hoping that it could be used across the NCAC. So
Yeah.
we appreciate your considering that and continuing to use Tom if he has time, as long as it doesn't take him away from us. Just kidding. He can manage his own time, but we're very happy that you're looking at using our document naming standard and our document management standard, because we think it's it's proven to be very useful, and we think that a lot of what you're doing could benefit from using it. And then hopefully other subcommittees and the NCAC management themselves might enjoy that too.
Mhm.
And
Great.
once again, big thanks to Jeff and to Tom on helping us with that.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
if you want me on the agenda again, please let me know. Otherwise I'll just attend as I can. But if you want me on the agenda, I'll make a specific effort to be here.
Okay.
I
Well, and
think
if we end up
women-
with a brainstorming session, as Lynn has suggested, I would think it would be really helpful, Tom, to have you there to help us kind of organize the headings or the outline, whatever we want to call them,
Yeah.
headings, outline, sections, so that this document is more manageable.
If you'd like me to act as a facilitator for that, I'd be happy to do that.
That would be great.
That'd be great. Yeah, because all of this is pretty new to me. And so it's pretty hard to integrate and understand on each step, even just the vocabulary. So,
Yeah. Well,
Well,
and so I think,
you have an open invitation until further notice.
and so I think the next step is that before our next meeting, we're going to hear from Sarah, right? So that we don't just go spinning our wheels.
Right, and I would encourage you to reread or look at the what Tom presented today to review that and understand if that can help each of us wrap our heads around the breakout of how to present that in our own heads, so that when the consultant comes, see how much that aligns and how
Mhm.
whether it has anything to do with it or not. But I think we're going to want to have some self-determination as well as giving ourselves over to some consultants. So it's important for us to be thinking ourselves about how to do this as well as waiting for their input. It's important.
Right. So
I should
maybe
say that-
each of us come up with some sort of
Something.
outline that we think would work, even if it's going to be changed umpteen times.
Yeah.
But I agree with Barbara and Lynn that I am reluctant to spend time and then have somebody come in and say, oh, that's great, but throw it out the window.
Right.
No.
Tom, you had a comment?
Well, yeah, I think any consultant worth hiring is going to want to know what they're starting with. So I think it unlikely they're going to want to throw out everything, especially if it's a matter of just making what you have more understandable. You're probably going to want to, they're probably going to want to have that first. And
Well, I
it'll
think-
actually make their job easier by being able to understand what's there.
Right. I
Well,
think
I sus-
they are supposedly, from the earlier conversations about the consultant, is that community plans have existed in 36 counties in Oregon, and plus all the small jurisdictions for many, many years now. And so they are supposed to bring to the table experience which makes our job easier, not to put words in our mouths, but to
Mhm.
say, here's a great way to proceed and to help us do that, particularly to Sarah's point of tying to zoning ordinances, because that's the magic. That's where the magic happens, is when this vision starts being grounded in action over time to produce an outcome. So
Right.
they should have a lot of experience in doing this.
Yes. And in fact, they do it all the time.
Yeah.
So they're going to say step 1, step 2, step 3, and then we're going to say, oh yeah, we want to do step 1 that way. And they're going to say, well, these are your options with step 2. And then we would say, this is the self-determination, Randall. And then we would say, oh yeah, well, let's handle step 2 this way. Kind of like, we're going to change the Beaver questionnaire a little bit to suit Nescoin. But isn't that a great starting point? You don't
Depends
have
on
to
your
reinvent
perspective.
the whole wheel. Here's a little off topic.
Okay, remember we're at 2 hours.
Okay. When is the meeting that's about STRs in Nescoin?
It's on a week from tomorrow, on the 16th.
On the
At 7
15th.
PM.
16th.
And then does anybody know why isn't the whole 97149 area zip code in the community plan? Why is the area
That's a-
so small?
Well, it's a definition of an urban unincorporated community that the service districts pretty much indicate the urban unincorporated community. Outside of that, it's a rural unincorporated area. But that's the short answer. There's probably more intricate.
So see, we could, but you understand what I'm saying? We could come up with a community plan and then across the street, you know, from the community plan on the way to Nescoin, someone could do whatever they wanted.
Well, the comprehensive plan for the county is what determines land use ordinances. And so if you're not in one, you're in the other. So
But I will
Oh.
be quick to say that the STR regulations, Ordinance 84 Amendment 2, is not a land use ordinance.
It's
And that
it's
the
a
CAC
regulation.
And the CAC is entitled to evaluate things that are not in the land use realm.
Right.
And that's something that we've been really struggling with in the bylaws committee, is setting the boundaries.
Sure.
And so we don't have a firm answer yet. We're waiting on some input from Sarah, but we agree that the official plan boundary for the city is extremely narrow. And that's something that Sarah said would be impossible to change. And I think she's told this group, she's told our group that, and we kind of pushed back a little about why. And she said that the reason is that there are too many decisions that have been made within that boundary area that everything would have to be relooked at completely. So that's not going to change. But as Barbara said, we can, for the NCAC, we can set a different boundary. And in fact, our current boundaries are quite broad. So the bylaws committee is looking at something kind of in between. Tom could give you, if there were time, a list of all the different maps that he's come up with that are possibilities, and we've narrowed those down to 3 at this point. But
I could show you
that's
those
coming
3.
up in future meetings.
I could show you those 3, but I probably shouldn't.
But
You're out of
Okay,
time
you
well,
could go
thank
in
you.
and see them.
So it's good to
Okay, so
attend those
I'm-
bylaw meetings. Yeah.
So I'm relieved to know that if you're not in one plan, you're in another plan. I mean, nobody's outside of a plan, right?
Right. There are no places that have no land use planning in the state. They're under one auspices or another, usually a county or unincorporated or a city. Unincorporated area.
Okay, well, maybe I'm relieved a little bit then that it's just this small Nescoin area.
Well, don't be
But
relieved.
your
much, or
community
watch the work.
plan, your community plan is not necessarily just land use, though, like Barbara said, correct?
Right, it's aspirational and has an effect on recommendations. And Guy can speak to that whole element of the planning commission paying attention to different communities' specific recommendations when they make a decision. So
Yes, although that, I mean, I don't want to be the cynic. I just would tell you that at the end of the day, in anything relating to kind of visioning that happens on the ground, there's always going to be a county council in the room saying your authority is here and the zoning regulation is this. And you can do lots of things and you can feel good about it, but there's going to be that discipline. I mean, the system is built to have that discipline.
yeah, because they always cite precedents that may or may not really be applicable. Yeah, it's kind of a deep breath kind of thing when you do all this work and then see how it really comes down.
Yeah.
So on that cynical note, let me thank you all for
One more thing, Ran, one more thing.
oh,
What's
After
the
public-
agenda for next time?
yeah, we got to do that right now.
I think he gave us our assignment. I wrote it down on my to-do list, so maybe I better verify that we are effectively to look at the community plan as it exists and bring to the meeting next week or 2 weeks from now, kind of how we see that framework being established and evolving as content. And the interim step is hearing from Sarah on where's that consultant and when are they coming.
Mhm.
But that's all I've got in my notes. There may be
Yeah,
more.
I agree.
Visions.
That's our agenda. Is that right?
Well, that's one of the agenda items. I mean, Rand may want to have more.
You also
Well,
talked
if we're
about,
all going to comment on the framework, that's going to take some time.
Yeah, well, we don't have, well, depends on how long Sarah and the consultant take, but we've not we had Tom's presentation today and the questionnaires presentation from Sarah. So without those, there should be time for discussion. And Tom, you had another thing that you noted
I
today.
just wanted to know if you wanted to put on your agenda anything to do with enabling you to go forward with that, with the document. I don't know if you want to do that or not. I heard some pushback in terms of actually, going to an interim version of the editorial pass. We found that really useful, so I wouldn't necessarily want to abandon that if I were you.
So how do I write that? Enable us to go forward with our
Do you want me to act as a
facilitator.
facilitator?
Yeah,
Or
no, I would.
thinking about the structure?
Well, how do
Yeah.
we move forward without a framework?
Yeah, that's what the facility would be doing. We
Yeah,
would
no,
talk
like-
about what's there, how can you make a framework, and what, not given a framework, what goes where.
Right.
Those are the 3 steps.
So I would like to include that in the agenda. So we have, boy, I'm not sure how we,
Yeah, like, I'm not sure what I would write down there.
I know I'm
but
trying
like-
to enable
like,
us to go forward.
um,
So Tom, we're gonna put Tom on the agenda and then he and I will have a conversation to figure out exactly what that sounds like as an agenda item. Let me
Okay,
put that. So we'll do that, Jeff, and we'll get back to you so that you can get that out in an orderly fashion since it's 2 weeks away and
mhm.
it has to happen somewhat. And I'm going to include Sarah. Is going to introduce the consultant or let us know what that entails. And we should have hopefully the grant in hand to read what their responsibilities are.
Okay, so put the present the grant maybe on the agenda.
Well, how about we wait until Sarah gets back to us before we just based on
Okay.
her reply to your email, we'll put something on the agenda as appropriate.
Right.
you
So,
could call my part document discussion.
That's very general. That's
fine.
good. We can go a number of different directions with that agenda item.
That's
Well,
I can
Tom-
tie you
Sir
down.
Tom will be very specific.
And will Tom's facilitation be first on the agenda, or all of your discussing your
No, I'm going to go with Tom first so that it'll help frame our
okay.
individual brainstorms. We might alter them as he speaks.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, Tom, what would you prefer? Would you prefer to hear from us first?
I think my going on about how to do some structure might be useful first.
Yeah.
I think that
Okay.
would be.
Okay.
Now, I don't claim to be
Only 2 things I would add. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah.
What?
I don't claim to be an expert in community planning. I am an
Right.
expert in constructing large documents. By the way, this one's not large.
Not on your standards, but on mine.
Yeah.
I consider it a large canvas and the painting has yet to begin. Okay. All right. Well, I think that those will be the only 2 items besides the normal beginning, opening stuff and the public comment. And so we'll do our homework, but we'll hear from
Yes.
Tom and we'll see how that helps us organize our homework
Yes.
in the
I'm
class.
just gonna confirm that your next meeting after the 22nd will stick to the 2-week schedule.
Yes.
And did you want to have a library created for your documents?
Not yet. Not till we hear from the consultant. I mean, I really do want to know because I think the consultant's gonna,
Where are you going to store your documents?
right. I
Well,
don't know that we're gonna,
I don't think we have any documents
we
yet.
don't have any documents and
You
we're
will
not,
after I'm done with you.
Okay, then we'll put them in the
I will,
library after
I
we
will
get them.
take care of storing the documents.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your afternoon and
Thank you.
appreciate it. And we'll see you on the 22nd, if not before.
Thank you, Ram, for your leadership. We really appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right,
Thank you.
all right,
Bye.
bye-bye.